Hello, fifth grade. We're going to get started on our history lesson for today, but I did want to go ahead and just do another recap on a few parts of 13.2 that we talked about yesterday. One is that King James the First was the one who ruled after Queen Elizabeth the First, and he actually sponsored the first authorized version of the Bible translation, which means that's where we get hence the King James version of the Bible, because they named it after him. Okay, now during King James's rule, this was when the Puritans and the Separatists started forming, and the Puritans were the ones who wanted to purify England and basically get them away from the Church of England. Okay. Now, also during this time, there was a few brilliant people, scientists, writers, and different famous people that we started learning about yesterday, and one of them was John Bunyan, who wrote Pilgrim's Progress, which is a book you've heard us say throughout our curriculum, and it's a very important Christian book. Okay, we also have Oliver Cromwell, and Oliver Cromwell was the leader of the Roundheads. And just to recap, the Roundheads were people who thought that the king should actually obey the laws of the land, okay? And so they were trying to kind of fight against the king as well. And then we also have a wonderful discovery by Sir Isaac Newton, which is the discovery of the law of gravity. And so there was just kind of like a recap on some things that we did touch base with yesterday, but I might not have gotten all of them. So if you want to press pause now, you can. That way you can write a few of these notes down if you didn't get them down yesterday. Those will help you with your assignment today. Okay, fifth grade, we're moving on to the page 206 through 212 in section 13.2. So please make sure that you've read these pages before you go over these notes and my explanation, okay? So basically, this is the time called the Restoration time. Now, this was the time right after King Charles II had come into throne. And now King Charles II, he was not wanting the people to follow in the biblical standards. So he was kind of pushing that part out of England at the time and not having people follow the Bible. And so because of that time, a lot of people thought that the two things that came during that time were God's way of punishing the wicked people in England. And one was a plague. Now, the plague actually took place and spread through Europe and in the east of England, and it spread very rapidly, and those who were wealthy could flee outside of the area of where the plague was, and they were able to take refuge like in the country, but those in the city were not, and so they actually died. And at one point, some of the people wrote, "God have mercy on us," above their doors, hoping that the Lord would save them. And then the second thing that happened was the Great Fire of London. And now this was where the city caught fire and burned for 3 days, and it destroyed all of London. Now, some people thought that that was kind of a good thing because it gave them a chance to wipe out the city from the plague and be able to rebuild. And that's where we have Sir Christopher Wren, who was one of the architects that actually helped to rebuild London, okay, after the Great Fire. Okay, now after that, after the next king, which was King James, and then there was William and Mary of Orange, which were James's son-in-law and daughter, took the throne. The English Bill of Rights was written, and actually England became the constitutional monarchy, and that was when Queen Anne, after William, had taken the throne. Now, during Queen Anne's reign, okay, was when the Wesleyan revival started. And that was because at that time, England was known for their drunkenness. They were known for their poverty, for their crime. I mean, it was just not going very well in England for the people, and they were not following the Bible. So during that time, that's when George Whitefield, known as our most famous English preacher, ended up starting to preach across England and bringing the word back to the people. Okay, now he was said that you could hear his voice, just his voice. Remember, there was an amphitheater back then with 30,000 people listening to him because his voice was so powerful. And so during this time, this is actually when John Wesley, which was the great English revivalist, was spreading God's word as well. And he is one of the most famous men in English history, okay? And he learned all of what he knew from his mother. Now, through these teachings and through Wesley and through Whitefield going out and spreading God's word, England started to change. And that is when England's greatest power was influencing the world, but the Bible then became the book that the people of England followed. And so that was back a while back that happened, and it was called a people of a book, and that book was the Bible. Remember, I said that before, like a day or two ago. And so that was when the Wesleyan revival was going on, and people were spreading God's word. Okay, so now during this time, also Robert Raikes became known as the father of the Sunday school movement. And what he did was he started opening Sunday school up for poor kids that couldn't go to school. And so he taught them the Bible. He taught them how to live, reading, writing, arithmetic. And these poor kids went to work all day, and their one day on Sunday was their day off. And they actually went to school on that one day because it was a free school that Robert Raikes started. Now, after everyone saw him starting this, it kind of spread through different other parts of Scotland and Wales and other parts of England as well. Okay, so now there was other missionary explorations going on at the time, and James Cook actually was an explorer who discovered Australia, and he started traveling around, and William Carey had heard about all of Cook's adventures, and so he actually started going out, and as he grew older, and he ended up sailing for India, where he ended up translating the Bible into many of the different Indian languages. And so William Carey then became known as the missionary father of modern missions, and I believe we learned about him last year. Okay, because he was the one bringing a lot over to America, and people were learning about the Bible through him.